6 presumed dead after cargo ship destroys major U.S. bridge. UN expert confirms Israel's genocide acts in Gaza. Good afternoon, you're watching World Today with me, Shuhaida Arifin. The search for 6 people missing after a packed cargo ship slammed into a Baltimore bridge, causing it to collapse, has been suspended. All 6 people were members of a nighttime construction crew who were repairing potholes on the Francis Scott Key Bridge when disaster struck not long after midnight. The incident has blocked one of the busiest U.S. commercial harbors.
Based on the length of time that we've gone in this search, the extensive search efforts that we've put into it, the water temperature, that at this point we do not believe that we're going to find any of these individuals still alive. Coast Guard's not going away, none of our partners are going away, but we're just going to transition to a different phase.
Video footage showed the packed container ship slamming into one of the bridge's supports, causing the 1977-built steel structure to then collapse like a deck of cards. Maryland Governor Wes Moore said earlier that quick thinking by authorities once the ship issued a mayday call allowed them to stop vehicles from driving onto the bridge. The governor also said there was no indication that the bridge was structurally at fault, noting that it was actually fully up to code. President Joe Biden called the collapse a terrible accident and pledged to get the port reopened and the bridge rebuilt. The Francis Scott Key Bridge, named after the poet who penned the lyrics to the U.S. national anthem, is an important link to the East Coast highway system used by about 34,000 vehicles every day. The United States said Tuesday it would continue airdrops of aid to besieged Gaza despite pleas from Hamas to stop the practice after it said 18 people had died trying to reach food packages. Hamas demanded that its enemy Israel instead allow more aid trucks to enter the war-torn territory, which the United Nations has warned is on the brink of a man-made famine after nearly 6 months of war. Fighting raged unabated on Tuesday, a day after the UN Security Council passed its first resolution calling for an immediate ceasefire and urging the release of all hostages. The health ministry in Hamas-run Gaza said 12 people, including some children, were killed when an airstrike hit a displacement camp last night near the southern city of Khan Yunis. Hamas and the Swiss-based Euromed Human Rights Monitor said 6 people were killed in stampedes and 12 others drowned off the territory's Mediterranean coast trying to salvage aid packages. The UN Children's Fund, UNICEF, said vastly more aid must be rushed into Gaza by road rather than air or sea to avert an imminent famine. UNICEF spokesman James Elder pointed out that the necessary help was a matter of kilometers away in aid-filled trucks waiting across Gaza's southern border with Egypt. The U.S. National Security Council said in a statement later they would continue trying to get aid in on the road. Israel's military campaign has killed at least 32,414 people in Gaza, most of them women and children. The UN expert who concluded Israel was committing acts of genocide in the Gaza Strip received broad support at the United Nations yesterday, with countries speaking up to back her and report. Special Rapporteur on Human Rights in the Palestinian territories, Francesca Albanese, told the UN Human Rights Council that countries should impose an arms embargo and sanctions on Israel. Expanding in person on her report released on Monday, Albanese said Israel was characterizing the entire Gazan population as targetable, killable and destroyable, and has ostentatiously laid bare its genocidal intent to rid Palestine of Palestinians.
The genocide in Gaza is the most extreme stage of a long-standing settler colonial process of erasure of the native Palestinians. For over 76 years, this process has oppressed the Palestinians as a people in every way imaginable. crushing their inalienable right to self-determination demographically, economically, territorially, culturally, and politically.
Dozens of diplomats, mostly representing Arab and Muslim countries, but also Latin America, took the floor to defend her mandate and her work. Pakistan, speaking for the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, backed her call for sanctions and an arms embargo. Egypt, speaking for Arab group countries, affirmed their support for Albanese's mandate and said they were gravely concerned about Israel's structured and systematic attack to make Gaza Strip uninhabitable. Russia on Tuesday sought to shift the blame for the Moscow concert hall attack onto Ukraine and its western backers, despite Daesh claiming responsibility for the massacre of at least 139 people. The Kremlin's security services have been scrambling to explain how gunmen on Friday managed to carry out the worst attack in Russia in over 2 decades. President Vladimir Putin has acknowledged that the radical group conducted the bloody assault, but suggested they were linked to Ukraine 2 years into the Kremlin's offensive on the country. The head of Russia's FSB security agency, Alexander Bortnikov, said on Tuesday that while those who had ordered the attack had not been identified, the assailants were heading to Ukraine and would have been greeted as heroes. Ukraine has fiercely rejected any accusations from Moscow that it was tied to the assault, with a top aide to President Volodymyr Zelensky saying the Kremlin was looking to cover up the incompetence of its intelligence agencies. Russia's closest international ally, Belarusian strongman Alexander Lukashenko, appeared to undermine the Kremlin's main narrative, saying that the attackers tried to enter his country first before heading to Ukraine. The Kremlin has expressed confidence in the country's powerful security agencies, despite questions swirling over how they failed to thwart the massacre after public and private warnings from the United States. Colombian authorities have seized over 5 tons of cocaine from 2 anti-narcotics operations in the country that included a high-speed chase at sea. During a joint operation between the Colombian Armed Forces and the United States, the army stopped a vessel off the coast of San Andreas Island carrying over 3.3 tons of cocaine hydrochloride. In the coastal city of Santa Marta, authorities discovered 1.7 tons of cocaine hidden inside boxes of avocados. A suicide bomber rammed a vehicle into a convoy of Chinese engineers working on a dam project in northwest Pakistan, killing 6 people, the third major attack on Chinese interests in the South Asian country in a week. Police said the engineers were en route from Islamabad to their camp at the dam construction site in Dasu in the province of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. Chinese engineers have been working on a number of projects in Pakistan, with Beijing investing over $65 billion in infrastructure works as part of the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor (CPEC) under Beijing's Wider Belt and Road Initiative. Kenya's government started to release the remains of dozens of victims of a Christian cult whose leader asked his followers to starve themselves to death to their relatives. More than 400 bodies have been exhumed from a secluded settlement in an 800-acre area within the Shakahola Forest in southeastern Kenya. Government officials say the release of the victim bodies has taken long due to the exhumations and post-mortem and identification procedures. To date, 35 bodies have so far been positively identified. Myanmar military to hold annual Armed Forces Day. Stay tuned.
Hai, saya Syah.
Saya Hanura.
Kami akan kongsikan cara mendaftar padu. Jom ikuti langkah ini.
Langkah pertama, isi maklumat asas seperti nama penuh, nombor kad pengenalan, poskod, nombor telefon dan email. Langkah kedua, masukkan kod one time password OTP yang telah diterima melalui SMS atau email yang telah didaftarkan. Langkah ketiga, di bahagian ini, anda perlu tetapkan kata laluan mengikut kriteria yang telah ditetapkan.
Jangan lupa anda perlu membuat pengesahan identiti. Langkah pertama, ambil gambar MyCard bahagian hadapan. Langkah kedua, ambil gambar MyCard bahagian belakang. Langkah ketiga, ambil gambar swafoto atau selfie pemilik MyCard. Sila tunggu sekejap dan sekiranya keluar paparan ini, pengesahan identiti anda telah berjaya.
Jangan lupa ya, kita kena kemas kini, okey? Di bahagian ini, anda perlu kemas kini maklumat asas, alamat kediaman, maklumat pendidikan, maklumat isi rumah, pekerjaan, pendapatan, komitmen dan bantuan. Sebelum membuat perakuan, pastikan butiran yang diperlukan diisi dengan lengkap.
Tahniah, anda telah berjaya mendaftar akaun padu.
Awak tu dah daftar ke belum?
Nak pergi daftar lah ni.
Indonesia's losing presidential candidate Anies Baswedan today laid out his challenge in court to last month's presidential election, calling it unjust and fraught with interference to sway the ballot in favour of one candidate. The former Jakarta governor said the election, which saw a resounding victory for Defence Minister Prabowo Subianto, was helped by the pressure from the administration on regional authorities and the mobilisation of social aid as a transactional tool to ensure one outcome. Prabowo received 60% of the votes with the help of tens of millions of young Indonesians and his promise of continuity of President Joko Widodo's policy after a decade in charge. Anies and third place Ganjar Pranowo won 25% and 16% of the vote respectively. Anies told the Constitutional Court that after 2 decades of direct elections, Indonesia was at risk of sliding into its authoritarian past. The court is expected to deliver its decision on the case on 22nd April. Challenges to election outcomes are typical in Indonesia. The team of Anies has called on the Constitutional Court to order an election rerun that excludes Widodo's son, alleging his last-minute inclusion for the vice president's post on Prabowo's ticket unfairly influenced the vote. Myanmar's junta holds its annual Armed Forces Day parade today in a show of force as it struggles to contain a growing armed resistance that has captured broad swathes of territory. The military has suffered a series of major losses to an alliance of ethnic minority armed groups. Junta Chief Min Aung Hlaing has admitted it may not be possible to hold elections all over the country because of the instability. 3 years after seizing power in a coup, the junta is now facing an existential threat, according to a UN expert, with casualties and defections taking a toll. Today we'll see a show of defiance as the military rolls out troops and hardware for the Armed Forces Day parade, commemorating the start of resistance to the Japanese occupation during World War II. Unlike in years past, the parade will be held in the evening from 5:15 p.m. because of hot weather. Security in Naypyidaw, the junta's remote, purpose-built capital, was tight with few cars on the roads in the run-up to the event. The February 2021 coup against Aung San Suu Kyi's elected government unleashed turmoil that has left thousands dead and shattered Myanmar's economy. At last year's parade, Min Aung Hlaing flanked the tanks and missile launches, vowed decisive action against the junta's opponents, but over the last 6 months, the general's grip on power has looked shakier than ever. Germany will introduce temporary border controls with its neighbours as part of ramped-up security around soccer's 2024 European Championship, which it is hosting. The tournament starts on 14 June and is set to attract 2.7 million fans to stadiums and up to 12 million at public viewing events. Interior Minister Nancy Faeser said that Daesh branch known as Khorasan, which US intelligence says appears responsible for the mass shooting attack near Moscow, poses the greatest threat to security in Germany.
Und ja, wir haben unsere Sicherheitsmaßnahmen bei Polizei, bei aber auch den Nachrichtendiensten hochgefahren. Das jetzt aber schon seit ein paar Wochen. Und ja, die Gefährdungslage ist nach wie vor hoch. Wie gesagt, sie war es schon vor Moskau und ist jetzt gleichbleibend hoch geblieben.
Germany Chancellor Olaf Scholz, speaking on a visit to Slovenia, said many precautions had been taken for the tournament and the government was assessing the security situation daily. Brazil and France launched an investment program to protect the Brazilian and Guianese Amazon rainforest, involving 1 billion euros in private and public funds over the next 4 years. The announcement was made during French President Emmanuel Macron's 3-day visit to South American country, where he landed in Belém, near the mouth of the Amazon, and was met by Brazil's President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. Macron and Lula took a riverboat to visit a sustainable development project for producing chocolate on an island near Belém and met with indigenous leaders. At the event, Macron honored indigenous leader and environmental campaigner Raoni Matuktire of the Kayapo people with the National Order of the Legion of Honor, France's highest order of merit, for his fight to protect the rainforests and the indigenous rights. Chief Raoni, who became a global reference for campaigning in the 1980s, with musician Sting at his side, handed Macron documents denouncing the environmental impact that a planned railway backed by soy farmers will have on indigenous people, whom he said have not been freely consulted. Veteran politician Manuel Rosales was not the Venezuelan opposition's first or even second choice candidate to field against President Nicolas Maduro in July's election, but is the only one who appears to have broken through a tightly controlled nomination system. Rosales is seen as a more palatable opposition figure for Maduro's socialist government as it seeks to maintain its grip on power, backing away from a high-profile pledge last year to allow free elections in 2024. The main opposition candidate has been barred by courts loyal to Maduro. The candidacy of Rosales, the governor of the oil-rich state of Zulia, was announced early Tuesday, moments after the main opposition coalition said it had not managed to access the registration website before the midnight deadline. His candidacy was separate from the Coalition Democratic Unitary Platform's PUD nomination bid, although his party is a member. The PUD was planning to put forward University professor Corina Yoris as a stand-in for disqualified opposition figurehead Marina Corina Machado. Rosales ran in the 2006 presidential election when he was soundly defeated by socialist Hugo Chavez, who was at the height of his popularity at that time. Previously, Rosales had served as a mayor of the Zulia state capital, Maracaibo, the country's second biggest city between 1996 and 2000, and then again from 2008 to 2009. In between those two posts, he also served as Zulia state governor. The observation mission deployed to Senegal by the European Union and West Africa's regional bloc on Tuesday praised the smooth running of the presidential election won by an anti-establishment opponent after 3 years of unrest. Around 7.3 million Senegalese were eligible to take part in the last Sunday's vote, which saw 44-year-old Bassirou Diomaye Faye elected as the youngest president in the country's history after his main rival and government candidate Amadou Ba conceded defeat. Ibrahim Gambari, head of the mission deployed by the ECOWAS, said that voting generally went smoothly and in a largely peaceful atmosphere. Meanwhile, the head of the EU mission, Malin Bjork, praised a well-organized and open election that demonstrated the strength of Senegal's democratic institutions. Official provisional results are due to published this week, but Faye's opponents in the race and outgoing president Macky Sall have already acknowledged his victory. Since 2021, dozens have been killed and hundreds arrested in various episodes of unrest, triggered partly by the standoff between the state and opposition figure Ousmane Sonko, who backed Faye's candidacy after being barred from the race. Sall's postponement of the presidential election, originally scheduled for 20 25th February plunged Senegal into its worst political crisis in decades that left 4 people dead.
Next in sports, Harimau Malaya failed to beat Oman at home. Stay with us. Even home ground advantage of playing at the Bukit Jalil National Stadium was not enough to help Malaysia as they failed to beat Oman in last night's Group D 2026 World Cup 2027 Asian Cup second round qualifying match. The Harimau Malaya squad lost 0-2, a similar result in last week's match against Oman in Muscat, making their road to the 2027 Asian Cup and the qualifying for the third round of the 2026 World Cup more difficult.
Right back Muhammad Azam Azmi Murad, midfielder Muhammad Syamil Ikuti Abah and striker Darren Lock were part of Malaysia's starting 11 last night as Kim Pan-gon made 3 changes to the team that lost in Muscat, while Oman kept nearly the entire starting lineup, with the only change being striker Jamil Al-Yamadi. Ahmad Shihan Hazmi Muhammad mistake of bringing down Mohsin Saleh Al-Ghassani during the first half's injury time gave Oman their first goal, with Omar calmly converting it to put the visitors 1-0 ahead. The last 30 minutes of the match seemed to be headed for a 0-1 result when a momentary lapse in concentration by the Harimau Malaya defence allowed an unmarked Muhammad Mubarak Al-Ghafri to score Oman's second goal in the dying minutes of injury time. Malaysia's loss means they remain third in Group D with 6 points. The national team will play Kyrgyzstan in Bishkek on 6 June before ending their Group D fixtures against Taiwan at Bukit Jalil on 11 June.
Harimau Malaya head coach once again accepted full responsibility for the team's second loss to Oman. He stressed that the loss did not mark the end of his charges' hopes of qualification, but admitted they would need the things to turn out to their advantage when they face group leaders Kyrgyzstan and their final Group D match against Taiwan.
Yes, very tough game, very tough game. First, I'm as a leader, I'm as a head coach, I'm apology to the Malaysia public. We cannot give you proud. I mean, result. Much appreciate tonight. Fans come to support. And I appreciate all the players. Very difficult situation. For them was very difficult situation. Yeah, still we have 2 more games. If there is a miracle, still we have some chance. I think better don't give up each other, you know, as a player, as a coach, as a fans. Better we don't give up. We fight until the end. Okay, so this is not the end of the world. Okay.
Speaking at the post-match media conference, Pan-gon also voiced out his optimism that the national squad will do their best to make a comeback after they play for their respective clubs when the Malaysia League begins in May. Meanwhile, Oman coach Yaroslav Silhavi admitted his team had a tougher time compared to the first meeting in Muscat, but was pleased that his team displayed the spirit to secure the result he wanted.
Defending Miami Open champion Daniel Medvedev and top seed Carlos Alcaraz marched into the quarterfinals of the tournament with convincing victories. Medvedev earned a 7-6 love win over Germany's Dominic Kopper, while Alcaraz took care of Italian Lorenzo Musetti with a 6-3, 6-3 win in 85 minutes.
Alcaraz, who's searching for the Sunshine Double after winning the Indian Wells, was too much for the 23rd seed Musetti, although the Italian certainly contributed to a crowd-pleasing contest. Stadium court erupted after a rally in the third game of the second set saw Musetti clip the ball between his legs, lobbing Alcaraz, but the Spaniard returned it with the tweener, only to lose the point to a deft volley at the net. But overall, it was a comfortable match for Alcaraz, whose all-round games looks in strong shape. And in the quarters, Alcaraz will face Bulgarian Grigor Dimitrov, who beat Paul Hubert Hurkacz, triumphing in a third set tie-break for a 3-6, 6-3, 7-6 win. Medvedev made an unusually sloppy start on Stadium Court with a series of unforced errors and found himself trailing 4-love in the first set tie-break. But having overturned that deficit, Medvedev went on to win all the remaining games as he showed that, despite these concerns over the rapid deterioration of balls on the hot court surface, he's comfortable with the conditions. The Russian suggested that Kofer had struggled to recover from the blow of seeing his tie-break lead vanish. The world number 4 Medvedev will face Chilean Nicolas Jarry.
Iga Swiatek's hope of landing another sunshine double ended in a 6-4, 6-2 fourth round loss to Ekaterina Alexandrova as the world number 1 joined third seed Coco Gauff in making an early exit from the Miami Open.
Swiatek, who won the first leg of the Sunshine Double at Indian Wells earlier this month, was completely outplayed by the Russian world number 16, who claimed the biggest win of her career. Top seed Swiatek, who captured the Sunshine Double in 2022, never broke Alexandrova's serve and had no answer to her powerful and precise ground strokes under the lights in South Florida. Alexandrova, seeded 14th, will next face 5th seed Jessica Pegula in the quarterfinals after she overcame fellow American Emma Navarro 7-66-3. France's Caroline Garcia upset world number 3 Gauff, beating the American 6-3, 1-6, 6-2. Garcia's serve was clicking early in her battle against Gauff, and she never faced a break point in the opening set before the American raised her level to even the affair at a set apiece. In the first game of the deciding set, Garcia fended off 4 break points to hold serve and broke at love to take a 2-love lead she would not relinquish against her 20-year-old opponent.
Alright, so that ends the bulletin today, wrapping up with a recap of our top story. 6 presumed dead after cargo ship destroys major US bridge. Tune in to Malaysia tonight, coming up at 8:30 p.m. on TV1 and saluran Berita RTM. We leave you with an aerial images of the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore, Maryland, after it was hit with a cargo ship yesterday. From river to the sea, Palestine will be free. I'm Shahida Arifin. Stay tuned to TV2.